So you live in Kyiv now. Have you been here much before you returned to Ukraine from Russian jail?
I had been to Kyiv 3 times. I attended the Student Counter Forum, if I'm not mistaken, in 2011. I came for a rally by Strategy 31, which is a pan-European anti-capitalist action, and to the EuroMaidan, where I was on February 10th to 11th, 2014. I was there for a day and a half with Oleksandr and our mutual friends.
What did you see on the Maidan then? What were your impressions?
On the streams, it was possible to see for the most part the struggle of the protesters against the forces of evil. When we arrived, we went to the Ukrainian house. Which resembled a large anthill. People ran around, offered each other help. I was very impressed with the level of collective self-organization. In Crimea, there was a rather different microclimate back then.
How were the events in Crimea in early March 2014? Do you remember your feelings? How did you feel about the events that took place on February 26, when the Russian military landed in Crimea?
The political situation was very tense. There were many talks about the referendum. Initially, it was scheduled for May, then brought forward to April, and then to March 16th. By then it became clear, if there are troops, the referendum is merely a formality, but I didn't realize it could be a long-term thing at the time. Well, I thought it'd be a few months or a year. It was when I got arrested that I realized that it was for the long haul.
Regarding your case fabricated by the Russian special services, you were accused in particular of setting fire to the United Russia office in Simferopol. What happened then?
I was involved in the arson of this building. It is a detached one-story building. I watched the street, and the other two smashed the window glass and poured the incendiary liquid and set it on fire. There were no people there at the time. The guys did check.
Why did you decide to take part in arson?
Because by then, the legal, peaceful means of struggle had exhausted themselves. There were more provocateurs from the authorities and protesters at the anti-war rallies.
Did you realize that there could be consequences of this arson by the Office of United Russia in Simferopol?
I understand, of course, but I did not view them as serious.
When did you realize that they would be serious?
On the day of the arrest.
As you were organizing the arson, did you realize that tortures took place in that building?
No, I didn't know about this particular one, but I knew there were tortures at the headquarters of the so-called Crimean self-defense and the Communist Party of Ukraine. Mind you, the self-defense tortured everyone who looked suspicious.
In the spring of 2014, did you have the support of the people of Crimea?
We did, but it was too late for any support to matter. It's hard to change something when the military is already in.
On the day of your arrest, were you precisely by the SBU building in Simferopol?
Yes, we were walking past the building with friends, drinking beer. Then some suited boys ran out and put me face down on the ground. Then they took me to their office.
Do you think they were Ukrainian citizens from Crimea or just plain Russians?
I'm not sure, but when I was being transferred to Moscow, there were about 40 to 50 people returning home from a duty trip.
After your arrest, you were taken to the SBU building in Simferopol. Then you were interrogated. What did they ask you?
They called surnames and asked me what I knew about those people. But I couldn't say anything because I didn't know any of those people. After that, they started asking about the arson.
Did they imply that if you told them what they needed, you'd be set free?
Nah, they just beat me. To the head, to the torso. But compared to what others had to go through, Oleksandr, for instance, it was nothing.
After you were transferred from Simferopol to Moscow, you were kept at the Lefortovo remand prison. Were you subjected to any pressure, whether physical or psychological?
No. They're all very polite, but strict in adherence to rules. For example, it was very difficult to get the books I brought with me, especially those in Ukrainian language. They didn't want to give them to me until the Public Oversight Commission, a Russian civil organization that monitors whether prisoners' rights are observed in remand prisons and colonies in Moscow, interfered.
Did other prisoners know of your case, that it was a political one?
They did. It was impossible to keep your article secret. It's customary to say a few words about your case as you enter the cell.
Before the verdict was announced, did you know that it would be 10 years?
I did. As we were being transferred out of Moscow, Sentsov told me he spoke to the investigator who precisely told him that you'll get 20 and your accomplice 10. And that's what we got in the end.
Did you fear those 10 years?
At that time, not anymore. Initially, I was a bit lost when I was just detained and arrested. But later, no. I didn't fear them.
After your detention and arrest, did you realize that your friends, relatives, even people you didn't know personally supported you? That you weren't alone?
I did. But I thought that they too could be subjected to pressure, because they knew me or because of their support for me.
Since you returned to Kyiv, did you see Gennady Afanasyev and did you speak with him?
No, I haven't. I don't have anything to discuss with him.
What was that transfer to the colony itself like?
It took 3 weeks. I was in transit in Voronezh and Chelyabinsk for 2 of them. The rest of the time, I was on the train. I had my books and a bag with letters and postcards. We spent the journey going through numerous postcards from different countries.
What was the administration's attitude toward you in the colony?
It seemed to me I was a socially alien element to them. But they had to be very civil with me, because the whole world was watching me.
You were regularly taken into punitive confinement. Why was that and how come so often?
The thing is, it wasn't just me. I was one of those who were on the precautionary list. As someone prone to spreading extremist ideology and literature. There were 10 of us in the whole camp. The other 9 were Muslims. Because of some internal instructions unknown to me, we had to spend major national holidays and important events, such as presidential elections and inauguration in punitive confinement.
How is the punitive confinement cell different from a standard cell in a colony?
Firstly, in colonies, prisoners live in enclosures rather than cells. Barracks, they call them. It's something in between student housing and an army barrack. Bedrooms have 2-tier beds. Our barrack had from 90 to 110 people at a time. We all lived together. In punitive confinement cells, 2 people share 6 square meters. Beds are strapped in early for the entire day. Wake up is at 5 a.m. until 8 p.m. All this time you have to either stand or walk, or you can sit on some stubs. Since I frequently went to punitive confinement, I saw guys who had been on the same precautionary list for many years. They were well equipped already. I asked my mum to bring me a large towel.
рушник там 2 метри на метр. І я його
I folded it in half and lay on it.
навпіл і лягав на нього. Там не
A
можна
towel was allowed,
користуватись там.
but a blanket wasn't. Tea, coffee, cigarettes, and food were also banned.
Заборонені та решта їжі там.
What was your typical day at the colony like?
Потрібно відмітитись.
We had to register,
Можеш далі.
then you could go sleep a bit more.
Потім там можеш
After which,
або в
you could go to the sports hall, club, library,
в бібліотеку, або
or just go for a walk in the local sector.
в локальній дільниці. Потім обід, після обіду.
Then there was lunch and free time.
Час. Потім
Then dinner and free time until the
після
check.
вечері, вільний час до перевірки. Ось ти можеш читати,
You can read, play board games, exercise, do sports.
займатися фізкультурою, спортом. Можна грати в спортивні ігри там. В нас
There were summer and winter soccer tournaments, as well as in volleyball, hockey.
з летнього
I never took part.
футболу, з волейболу, з хокею. Ні, не приймав участь.
Let's fast forward to August 2019. When did you realize that there were some movements towards your release?
Ну, все почалося ще.
It all started on August 14th.
Мене викликали в опервідділ.
I was called up to the agent department to have photos taken to check for presence of tattoos. It came across as suspicious.
Ось це мені
The
здалося.
following day, I was invited to speak to my lawyer, who visited me once a month.
Мене викликали на розмову з адвокатом.
We waited for over 2 hours, but there was no lawyer in sight. Then the agent says, "All right, let's go."
Раз на місяць приблизно приїжджав. Потім опер каже,
We go down, and the groundskeeper's there
спускаємося там
with my bags. That's it.
і з моїми сумками. І все. Тобто мені
So I wasn't even given time to pack my belongings.
дати свої речі.
The groundskeeper packed them, so I didn't speak to
Я
anyone.
не зміг ні з ким контактувати. Ось. І 15
On August 15th, I was in Chelyabinsk Crimean prison. Then on August 16th, I was already in Moscow's Lefortovo.
вже був в Лефортово.
Were you aware that other Ukrainian political prisoners were also there?
Ну, і я знав тільки про Клих.
I only knew about Stanislav Klich
Я летів,
because we flew together, but I didn't know about others.
нічого не знав.
We were all isolated from each other.
Були ізольовані один від одного.
On September 7th, they brought my dossier and some documents to sign.
І документи
The release certificate, some cash voucher,
про визволення, на передання.
They told us to get our belongings together and wait.
І все. Сказали збирати речі і чекати.
FSB officers accompanied me to the bus.
І вони прямували мене до автобусу. Ось, і вже
And I saw Sentsov and other people.
всередині я побачив решту.
That's when I felt
Я
happy.
був дуже радий. У нас
We
вийшла
got a
чудова
wonderful tour of Moscow.
екскурсія Москвою. Проїжджали там повз
We passed the Kremlin, the St. Basil Cathedral,
Василія Блаженного,
and the Christ Savior.
Спасителя. Там.
So you get to the Vnukovo airport.
Так. До нас заходить керівник,
The Lefortovo manager comes in and announces Putin's
оголошує
decree of pardon.
указ Путіна про помилування.
Then we waited for the plane.
Ну, потім чекаємо на літак.
You signed up for Facebook, you read other people's opinions, you read the news.
Поки що не встигаю.
I don't have time yet.
Я, можна
You could
сказати,
say that I'm 5 years behind.
на 5 років, але
I don't even have time to read the news of yesterday's events.
новини про події
And I still run around a lot to meetings and interviews while solving document problems.
позавчорашнього дня. Ну, ось бігаю по зустрічах, по інтерв'ю, вирішую організаційні проблеми там з документами.
After your return, did the state offer you psychological help?
Психолога, роботу з психологом.
Так, ще
Yes, when we were at the Feofania hospital in Kyiv, I met with a psychologist a couple of times, but I don't need psychological help.
Але я не потребую психологічної допомоги такої.
Для тебе, як для анархіста,
For you as an anarchist, what are the most important processes going on in Ukraine? What would you like to focus on in the future?
далі будеш акцентувати свою увагу.
Я ще не встиг
I have not yet managed to get on the agenda in Ukraine.
порядок денний в Україні
To understand all those events that have taken place over the last 5 years.
за останні 5 років. Але
But I can say this, I intend to continue to participate in the development of the labor movement, as well as the environmental and anti-fascist ones.
екологічного, антифашистського.